Giannis Antetokounmpo came into the league as one of the rawest athletes in a very long time. Standing at almost 7 foot with lightning fast speed, huge vertical leap, and gigantic strides, the Bucks envisioned him as a playmaking forward who could dominate both ends of the court. When they drafted him, Milwaukee thought that they would have to wait 4 years before he could be a truly effective player. But Giannis had other ideas, forcing his way into playing time in his rookie season and then going on to become an all-star in just his 4th year at age 22. Then, last season, he took yet another leap and became a force that was to be absolutely feared. But the Bucks were held back by the horrific coaching of Jason Kidd and his terrible defensive and offensive schemes. Now they are armed with Mike Budenholzer, and in the preseason, they have looked terrifyingly good. Not only has the team looked better, but Giannis looks like he has taken yet another leap in his playing ability. This video will take a look at both Giannis and then the Bucks, asking the key questions. Can Giannis win the MVP? And can the Bucks actually challenge for the NBA Finals? And let's start with Giannis himself. The Greek Freak is going to be the driving point of the Bucks offense and is by far and away the best player on their roster. Last season, Giannis was the most dominant inside scorer in the entire NBA. He scored more points in the paint than any other player in the competition and did so in a variety of ways. He posted up, drove on his defender, scored in transition, and collected and finished offensive rebounds. Due to his extreme length, size, and jumping ability, he can rise up over most defenders in the paint to score with ease. Where this is the scariest is in transition. Giannis has begun to master his handle, and this has allowed him to push the pace and get out in transition to score. He is lightning quick, steady, and has gigantic strides that allow him to pick his dribble up at the 3-point line and still get all the way to the basket. There isn't a defender in the league that is as quick as Giannis, as strong as he is, or with the reach that he has. If you try and guard him one-on-one in transition, it is going to be a layup, and more likely a vicious dunk. This forces teams to throw multiple players onto him in transition, one to try and slow him down at the perimeter, and then one or more in the paint to make it difficult to score. But this makes it easy for Giannis to pass to open players trailing him at the 3-point line or running down into the paint. And Giannis is a willing and surprisingly fantastic passer. If he is walled off, he looks for the open pass to create the best look for his team. And due to his insane wingspan and height, he joins LeBron and Ben Simmons as tall players who can easily see over the defense. This allows him to whip passes cross-court to the corner, and due to his great strength and giant hands, he can actually make passes that a lot of players simply cannot make. And with Bledsoe, Middleton, and Malcolm Brogdon, the Bucks have the personnel to run the fast break with Giannis. So he is an absolute nightmare in transition, but it doesn't stop there. Unfortunately for other teams, Giannis has proven himself as a very capable half-court scorer. And due to his athletic prowess combined with his amazing skills, he can do it in all kinds of ways. The Bucks can clear the floor and let him attack one-on-one off the dribble, they can post him up, or they can put him in the pick and roll as the screen setter or the ball handler. Every single time you come down the court, you don't know what kind of look you're going to get from Giannis. He can simply do so much. This makes it a lot tougher to set up defensive schemes and plans for him on a game-by-game basis. But one strategy became quite effective against Giannis last year. Teams would simply drop the defender back slightly and double quickly and hard when he drove. This limited his effectiveness slightly. Due to not having a 3-point shot last year, teams could just come off him and he wouldn't really make them pay. This reduced the effectiveness of his lightning fast first step and walled the paint off for him a little. But what really killed him was the extra help that came quickly and hard from opposing defenses. Giannis would attempt to pass out of these scenarios, but for some wild reason, Jason Kidd wouldn't always have a shooter in the corner, and his offensive scheme wasn't that conducive to open threes and easy looks. And when you have a guy like Giannis, you need to give him the LeBron treatment. Simply surround him with shooters and maximize his gravity and give him as much space as possible. And the Bucks just didn't do this last year. Luckily for Giannis, and unluckily for the rest of the league, both of these issues appear to be solved. First, Giannis has developed himself a 3-point shot that appears to be at least passable by league standards. In the preseason, he has been taking them off the catch and shoot, pulling up for 3, and even taking a couple after a few dribble moves. And while his mechanics might not be the best ever, he shoots them with confidence and they are going in, and that's all that matters. Giannis doesn't need to be a 40% 3-point shooter. He simply needs to be able to force the defense to come right up to him. This will make it far easier for him to blow by his defender, as well as give himself more room once he gets past the defense. And then, if they keep sagging off, he'll just keep launching threes and make them pay. And while Giannis is responsible for solving the first problem, it is the arrival of Mike Budenholzer that will solve the second. Coach Bud is one of the best coaches in the entire league and runs an offense that is predicated on spacing, movement, and passing. He prioritizes corner threes in general, and wide open looks at the rim. Bud comes from the school of coaching of Popovich, and his style is reminiscent of the Spurs in 2014 when they played some of the most beautiful team basketball of all time. Players set each other off-ball screens, are in constant motion, and are encouraged to make the extra pass in order to gain team success over individual. We've seen this in the preseason with the Bucks, as all their players on the court have been encouraged to set screens, dribble, shoot threes, and try and create for their teammates. They are all involved, but mainly in the offensive team scheme. But a lot of this revolves around Giannis. He is still the pin in their offensive system and will be asked to do a lot of the creating. I think he and Brook Lopez will likely be the only players tasked with posting up, and the rest of the roster will be asked to sprint and work around them. Bud has also given the ball handling duties to Giannis a lot in the preseason, having him initiate pick and rolls, take his man off the dribble. Giannis essentially has the green light in this offensive system, and I think this is a reflection of Coach Bud recognizing that he is the most talented player he has ever coached. And while his system of selfless team basketball worked wonders in Atlanta, he needs to adapt slightly to make it more Giannis focused in Milwaukee. But this doesn't mean that Giannis is taking his players off the dribble in isolation. The system is designed to get him the ball with separation, closer to the basket, and make it easier for him to score without expending as much energy. It is also designed to have as much three-point shooting as possible, and there is almost always a shooter in the corner to punish helping defenses. And in the preseason, they managed to drain 25 three-pointers in one game, tying the regular season NBA record. They won't be shooting 25 threes every game, but these extra points and shooting will open the court up and make for a much more effective and modern offense. They've also been having Giannis set screens for Malcolm Brogdon a fair bit, and this has worked wonders. The young point guard and ex-rookie of the year is an extremely smart and crafty player and works hard to set Giannis up in good positions and get him easy points. And this is the perfect blend for Giannis to have an MVP-style season. He'll have enough usage to rack up assists and points, but the system is designed to get him easy looks without him having to handle the ball. I am predicting a monster year for the young buck and think he could easily average 28 to 30 points a game to go along with 10 rebounds and 5+ assists. This kind of stat line is unprecedented, and if the Bucks could win 55+ games, then he would be the clear MVP in my eyes, barring any freakish stat line from another player. And to be honest, I think that the Bucks will win this many games. I think the Bucks are getting slept on hard. Everyone, including myself, has been fawning over the Celtics, the 76ers, and the Raptors in the East. And with good reason. These teams should all be fantastic and compete for the top seed in the Eastern Conference. But I think it is time to add Milwaukee into the mix. They have a fantastic coach, one of the best players in the league, and are bringing back nearly all of the same players they had on the roster last year. This is a recipe for success, and I think with another leap in production from Giannis, they can beat any team in the league on that night. And the biggest driver in this will be the change in defensive scheme. In the regular season and in the playoffs, defense is one of the best ways to consistently win games of basketball. Offensive schemes and offensive talent is fantastic, but some nights the shots don't drop and you don't score as many points as you usually do. If your defense is a sieve, you'll lose games on those nights, but defense is something that is predicated on a system, effort, and consistency. Good defensive schemes require players to know where to go, when to help, and what coverage to give on the pick and roll. It then comes down to the players and whether or not they choose to give the effort required every night. If they do, it limits the scoring of opposing teams on a consistent basis, and they can ride their own offensive variance much better than bad defensive teams. During Jason Kidd's tenure with the Bucks, he employed one of the most daring, bold defensive schemes I've seen in the NBA, and it failed spectacularly. Kidd had his players aggressively trap ball handlers coming off screens in order to try and force the extra pass and force turnovers. But by doubling these players every single time, their system was incredibly predictable. It initially shocked a few teams and led to turnovers and some success, But once coaches figured out that Milwaukee would do it every time, they just instructed their ball handlers to pass to the roll man and created a 4-on-3 situation every trip down the court. This led to wide open layups and threes, and the Bucks were one of the worst defensive teams in the league. It is no shock that as soon as Kidd was fired, the defense of the Bucks went right up, and they achieved a lot more success. And Bud will take that defense to another level. In 3 of his 5 years in Atlanta, he coached a top 10 defense, and I expect him to do the same in Milwaukee. In preseason, he already appears to have dropped the insane trapping scheme and employ a more modern switching scheme against the pick and roll. This coverage should lift their defense, and with the huge jumps in offense and defense, I think the Bucks will be a much better team. Bud also appears to have figured out a much more suitable rotation and gotten players on the roster who can all shoot. He is starting Brogdon and Bledsoe together, alongside Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez. This lineup is fantastic defensively outside of Lopez, but they can cover for him due to the great length and also the fact that he is a capable post defender. This lineup is also wicked offensively, as all 5 players can pass, shoot, and even create for themselves. They then bring Henson, Snell, Ilyasova, Christian Wood, Thonmaker, Dellavedova, Dante DiVincenzo, and Sterling Brown off of the bench. The team runs deep and should be able to handle injuries and make game-by-game adjustments, as well as having plenty of shooting in the starting and bench lineups. I also expect Middleton to have another fantastic year, and wouldn't be surprised to see Coach Bud have him help lead the bench unit to take advantage of his own scoring capabilities. This combination of depth, offensive scheme, defensive changeup, and pure talent will allow the Bucks to stay up there with the Celtics, Raptors, and 76ers. But whether or not they can finish number 1 in the East and challenge in the playoffs will largely come down to how good Giannis is this season. And with his new 3-point shot, an ocean of space, and another year in the league under his belt, he'll be coming for the title of the best player in the league. Fear the deer. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. And let me know in the comments below what you think of Giannis and the Bucks this coming season.